In this video, we'll learn how to edit 35mm Kentmere 400 in Negative Lab Pro and Photoshop. Let's begin. To start off here, we're going to hit the W key to bring up the white balance tool and click on the edge of the film border. That will white balance this image, and then we will use the keyboard shortcut Control-Alt-N to pull up Negative Lab Pro. This particular image is set to 20% border buffer, so I did not need to crop this one. So we'll just double check the film type is negative, the source was from a digital camera, and the color model is black and white. So we will click on convert. My nose itches. Okay, here is our converted scan. I'm going to change this from version 2.3 to 3.1 because that's what we're running. Don't know if this will make a difference, but let's just run through these quickly. Oh yeah, you can see a difference between smooth and precise. Smooth kind of reduces some contrast, quite a bit of contrast, and then precise adds more black. I think those two are the same. I'm going to leave it on precise because the film borders looks like there's a slight light leak potentially on this right side here. So we'll keep the darker look and we can brighten that up. Let's check out tones first. Let's see if that makes a difference. Nope. Refined and classic. Nope. Add density. Nope. How about color method? Probably not because this is a black and white image. No difference. Okay, so let's jump over to the edit tab. And our tone profile is linear gamma, and we have a little bit of leftover settings from when I was working on this image the first time. So I'm going to reset these all to 0 so we can check them out. Let's jump to linear gamma is kind of dark for this image, so let's jump to lab standard and see, whoa, much brighter. But we still have this nice deep blacks, which is cool in the tank. If we do lab soft, that kind of blends this area that's kind of got a light leak in it. Let's just see, shadow hard, highlight hard, kind of like that look actually. Standard, linear gamma is too dark, linear deep, linear flat, too flat. One of these profiles actually looked pretty good, I forget which one. Usually I don't like the lab hard preset, but that looks pretty decent actually. On this image, the film border is going to be cut out, so I'm just going to go with lab standard, and we'll bump up the white areas and make adjustments to contrast and the black areas. So for now, I don't know what this did. I don't know why that was on 5, but that doesn't really do anything. And oh, the black clip is doing something. I had it on -5, which is kind of interesting. Or was it +5? Okay, I'm just gonna leave these alone instead of messing with them. I'm gonna add sharpening though. And we'll do the rest of this in Photoshop because we'll have better control over everything. So let's click on apply. Next, we need to straighten this photo. We will do that by clicking on the transform tab and clicking on the guided transform tool. What we're going to do when this little box and cross pops up is line up the cross with the bottom of the film sprocket because that is straight. And then we're going to drag it to the other side of the image and let go, and that will give us a straight line. Let's do that again down here at the bottom. Click and drag to the other side of the image. Sometimes this won't line up perfectly, so you just get as close as you can. And then we need to do the sides of the image. So we're going to click and drag. Click and drag down here to the bottom. And then to close this, we will tap the R key to bring up the crop tool, and then we're going to drag these edges of the film border down. Hit the return key or enter key, and I don't like how the top is so short and the bottom has like a ton of a gap. How's that look? That's about as close as we're going to get, I think. I wish I could figure out, and this is something I have not figured out yet, without doing like a lot of messy work, trying to fix an image that has like a partial light leak. See how on this left side everything's nice and dark, it's consistent, and on this right side it's kind of like flat looking. In Photoshop you can section things off to fix them, but gotta be a better way to do that. So anyway, for now we're done in Negative Lab. Let's go to Photoshop by right clicking on the image. When the drop down menu pops up, mouse over to edit in and click on edit in Photoshop. Now we're in Photoshop. Normally I will isolate the film borders, but in this instance I don't think I will. I'm going to try to adjust the whole photo because we have this weird little like section on the right side that's kind of washed out a little bit. Let's try fixing that really quickly. I'm going to use the quick selection tool, which is the W key, and I'm going to try to select everything except the tank, which I think I can do, and then Alt click to have this line come back up because this bottom part doesn't really need to be selected. And then we're going to bring this part of the selection up so we're not affecting the white here. Okay. Okay. I don't know why I'm talking so quiet. Okay, so we got this part selected here. We need to get rid of the lid on the gas tank. That doesn't need to be part of this selection. And this doesn't necessarily need to be part of the selection either. Okay, now what's going to happen here if we darken this too much is we're going to have a pretty noticeable line here, up here on the top. I'm going to zoom in so you can see that. There's going to be a line there and down here. So this may not work. We'll have to make a very minimal adjustment for it to blend. We'll go back to camera raw filter. And because we've made this selection, the only part of the image that's going to be adjusted is what we selected in here. So let's gently add. We don't want to go too heavy with the darks here because we don't want it super noticeable. We hit the P key, we can see it before and after. Mostly just trying to blend this section of the photo so it matches with the other section. Not quite dark enough. So let's do Control Z and Control Z again. Go back to camera raw filter. And we're going to go a little darker. Actually, I'm going to try the dehaze tool. Maybe not. All right, let's add some shadows here. This is going a little heavy, but let's just see how it looks. Not bad. It's still not quite the same as the blacks and the rest of the image, but it's getting closer. So let's Control Z one more time. Control Z, go back to camera raw. Okay, and we hit -19 on shadows. So let's do that again. -19. Let's add some contrast. I don't want to go too crazy here. And I'm going to add a little bit of dehaze. A little more than you would usually do. And let's see how that looks. Control D. That actually looks pretty good. And you can see that we've got this little bit of a line here. But I think if I hit it with the heal tool, I should solve this problem. The J key is the shortcut for the heal tool. And you can see a line there. Actually, I'm not going to use the heal tool. I'm just going to do the lasso tool. And we're just going to use the content aware tool. Did that do it? No. Control Z. Let's see if we can, let's use the generative fill and just type blend and see what happens. This is going to be way longer than I thought. Sorry, guys. But I do want to show you how to come in and make these adjustments if you need to do it. So we're almost there. The AI generating takes a while. Okay, we have some sort of a honeypot thing. I've noticed just the last couple days using the generative fill, it's like it got a reduction in how smart it was and how it would blend things in the past. It used to not do things like this unless you were specific. So let's try not giving it a prompt. And if it doesn't work, then we'll just let it be. Okay, so that blended the transition between the two, the light and the dark area. It's still there, but it's not as prevalent, so we're going to call that good, because if we zoom out, once we get the rest of the image done, we're not going to be able to notice that. And up top here looks pretty good. I don't really notice any of the transition areas, so we're going to call it good. All right, so we've mostly corrected this right side of the image. Let's get back to the actual image correcting. Then we need to flatten this image so we can make the edits. So we'll go up to layer and go down to flatten image. Now we can work on this again like a normal photo. Let's go back to camera raw filter. And now we can make our adjustments. So I'm going to push up these shadows a little bit, try to get a little more detail out of this bottom area here. I know that sounds kind of intuitive because we just darkened this side of the image, but I think this will work out pretty well. So I'm going to push these up just a little bit and then bring the shadows down. And then I'm going to push the whites up quite a bit. And highlights a fair amount. So this pops like, I forget which preset we were looking at, but usually I don't like the lab hard preset, but that looks pretty decent actually. One of those presets made this image really pop. So I'm going to do a little bit of exposure more than I would normally, but I want that the tank to pop. We're going to add some contrast back in, bump up highlights a little bit, bring up shadows just a tad, bump up the whites a little bit, and then add black back in. This is something I do on my black and white photos that are digital. I'm going to add a touch of white balance here and tint. Oh, maybe not tint. Okay, vibrance and saturation we don't need. Texture, we'll add just a smidge here. And we'll add some dehaze back in. Boom, 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 boom. Let's add some sharpening. 15 is my go-to on sharpening. And then I like to bump detail to 20. All right, let's take a look at a before and after and see what we've done here. We push the P key, that'll give us a before and after. Looks really nice. I did want to mention this is a pushed image. Kentmere 400 is very nice for pushing. It's like HP5, but not quite as expensive. There's probably some slight reduction in quality, but I mean, like, this is 35 millimeter. Look how freaking sharp it is. I mean, like, this is crazy. That's like zoomed in at 121%, and it's very sharp, and that's pushed. So if anybody knocks Kentmere, it is a solid film. And if you want to shoot more and you can't afford HP5 or just want to shoot more in general and you like black and white, Kentmere 400 X-Tall, develop yourself, save you a ton of money, and you get really high quality images. Okay, so now that we're done with the edit here, I'm going to click OK. Everything looks really nice. We need to dust this image now. This is one that I have not dusted before, so I'm going to do it in this one. I'm going to speed through things. If you would like to see a full video on how I dust images in Photoshop, I will link that below. Okay, I'm going to hit Control-0 to zoom out and see if I missed anything. There's a couple kind of weird little spots. This little guy here, I think that's a reflection, but we'll get rid of it. And then there's just this little tiny thing right here next to that. And I know this is probably a reflection because there's other little spots right here, but these blend in okay and that blends in okay. This one, however, does not. So I'm going to remove this guy. Boom, boom. Control-D to deselect, and then Control-0 to zoom out. All right, I think we're pretty much there. I'm just going to get rid of this little guy. And then I think that's all of the issues. Control-0. That looks pretty dang good. Guys, this is Kentmere 400 push 2 stops indoors with, I mean, it's like decent lighting for like looking at stuff, but it's not the greatest light for shooting. But push 2 stops, this looks great. It's super, super sharp, X-Tall, and a fancy lens. But still, this is crazy. It's a budget film, and it handles this well in relatively poor lighting conditions, but push 2 stops. Look how fine the grain is. It's so pleasing. It's like, this is just a very nice grain pattern, grain structure. It looks awesome. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. My nose itches.